Hey, it's me, and welcome to Trump Mafia. And thanks for some of your comments that you're posting, because I get a lot of cool people on my channel. People from the alternative right, some Tea Party people, and a lot of nationalists. And not just nationalists from the United States, but also from other countries. Because you get it. You understand that this is not about the little people against the rich. No, that's socialism. You understand that this is about going up against the globalists and those corrupt people sitting in the ivory towers. I look at the United Nations or the European Union or even the US Congress, and I feel like vomiting. You can just smell the stench of corruption. And Brexit and also the coming election of Donald J. Trump are the kind of shockwaves that shake the foundations of these ivory towers. And they don't care about you. They're corrupt scumbags. And they're sitting up there in the ivory towers playing SimCity all day long and importing rapists and terrorists. And they don't care, because when the little people are trying to avoid getting raped or killed, they're too busy to be concerned about this corrupt bunch. And that's the whole objective. They're playing SimCity and they like to control. And it is human nature to want to control other people. But it's also human nature to work against that. And what you have now, it's a massive wave that will dismantle many of these communist committees, these ivory towers. Nationalism is good. And we all have this feeling about nationalities. Now think about stereotypes. It's comical, but hear me out. So you have a French guy wearing a beret, he has a baguette, and he's painting watercolors next to the River Seine in Paris. Or the fat German guy wearing lederhosen, and he has that hat with the feather inside like he's going fly fishing, but not, and a big beard. And the British guy wearing a bowler hat and a suit, or James Bond. And these are stereotypes, but it means that for nationalities, you're able to look at different aspects of their culture, their history, even food and traditions. And the United States would be a cowboy all around the world. People see Americans, let's say, as a cowboy. That would be the stereotype. And a lot of people have fun, and they say that the United States history is based on Dodge City or Tombstone. But if you really look at the United States, it's a very short history, but it has historical events and people. It has wars and all the inventions, from electricity to cars and microwave and everything. And you're thinking, wow, in such a short time, this country came so far. And you have people that really hate the United States, and sadly, many of them are American or claim to be American, like Barack Obama and a lot of liberals. And they will always point at some dark spot. Now, no country is heaven on earth. Every country has its dark spots. But we're talking about the evolution of a nation, and the good outweighs the bad and the ugly in the United States. So in fact, slavery is always pointed to by someone like Barack Obama, because he and many others, they don't want the United States to be rich. They don't want the United States to be powerful. They don't want the United States to do well. And so they work against it. So they point out slavery. In the same way Barack Obama will react to Islamic terror in 2016, where it's occurring every other week, and he will point to something Christians did 1,000 years ago, because he can't find an example in the current day. In the same way, he will look at the United States and he will go way back and point to slavery. But he doesn't mention that in the timeline of the United States, slavery was a dark spot, but a very small spot. Now, think of this. The British imported slavery. Okay, so we're not talking about the American government doing that. It was the British. And then slavery is embedded. A lot of plantations depend on it. In the very same way that you now have many companies that are depending on illegal immigration. And that's why they will vote for Democrats, because they want open borders. In the same way, Democrats back then also supported slavery because they had the plantations. But when the United States became independent, in just a couple of decades, the United States stopped the slave trade, meaning no more ships coming from Africa. And in any case, it was already slowed down, but it became illegal. It stopped in 1800. Then in a couple of decades, you had the Civil War, and the United States ended slavery. And then another couple of decades, and you had civil rights. And then now you have a black-looking guy as president. So we're talking about an evolution, but you can see with this timeline that as soon as the United States became a country, very soon they started taking steps against slavery. Now, the Democrats of way back then always opposed that. But the Civil War was very brutal, and the Democrats lost. But I will say this. You also have these Democrats now trying to disavow their own past, and they're stepping on the Confederate flag. They're discriminating against the Confederate flag. And that's like disavowing your own grandparents. Okay, fine, they want to do that, but I don't think it's great, because in a civil war, you're talking about Americans fighting against Americans. So you don't punish the losing side. You just evolve together. Now, I will give you an example. It's not exactly the same, but in Europe, because it's international, Germany lost the First World War, which they started, you could say. But England and France really wanted to humiliate Germany after victory. Massive reparations and all these conditions. They could not make their own army. And Germany had hyperinflation, and it just led to the rise of Hitler. And he took revenge on those countries. You know the story. He really did take revenge. Now with a civil war, you don't start discriminating the losing side. But you have Democrats now removing the Confederate flag from cemeteries, from high schools, tearing down statues. What's wrong with these people? It seems like liberals want to destroy everything about the fabric of the United States, whether in the past, in the present, or the future. They really want to destroy the fabric of the United States. And they want to confuse you with transsexuals and gay marriage and this and that. Just anything that takes away from the majority supremacy, which is it's a white Christian nation. Now, I'm not a white supremacist because I believe that white supremacy is a globalist idea, meaning you would rather throw in with other whites in foreigner countries than fellow citizens, Americans, maybe Asians or blacks or Hispanics. And that's wrong. That goes against the spirit of nationalism. But I am for the supremacy of the culture of the nation. Now, of course, the United States is made up of many immigrants, and many of them, like the Irish, when they arrived in the late 1800s, they were really discriminated against and treated worse than black people. In fact, their wages were lower than the wages for the blacks, if you can believe that. But I don't see any group right now, Irish Lives Matter, causing a ruckus and shooting police officers. No, you don't see it. Because they've assimilated and they became part of the supremacy of the nation. Now, the United States is a white Christian nation. That doesn't mean everybody has to be Christian, but it does mean that the values that the United States was founded on is majority supremacy. Now, blacks are 13% of the population, not 30, 13, 1-3. Now, that's a tiny minority. On the other hand, everyone who's an American citizen is part of the supremacy of the nation. And that's what everybody has in common. So immigrants that came legally, they made an effort. In fact, maybe it took a lot of time and money, but they became American citizens. So when they say the pledge, when they look at the flag, it really means something because they're part of the supremacy. But when you have illegals, they break the law to get in, or they overstay visas, and they never really feel part of the supremacy because they've never made the effort to be a legal American citizen. So of course they cannot respect the flag, and of course they will not respect the law, and of course they will vote Democrat. Because Democrats don't only condone illegal immigration, they also release felons because they know felons will also vote Democrat. Now the idea I have is that the nation is so powerful and it can be a uniting force. And you see that right now, starting with Donald Trump and the movement. I mean, you see people from a union, but then you also see people in companies, then you see Christians, evangelicals, then you also see Asian Americans for Trump or Latinos for Trump. And it's this coalition of people. What they all have in common is that they're patriotic and they want to see a strong country. Now, I have to tell you that, this pandering by Hillary Clinton is really pathetic. With that hot sauce in her purse. And I was on a website yesterday, and I didn't see the video, but I saw the title of the video and the link, and many comments. And the video was called Huma is Fisting Hillary, or Huma Fisting with Hillary. And I didn't click on it because I think it's about that fist bumping, which is like pandering because black people do that fist bump thing. So the comments were all like, it's so sexy, and Huma is fisting with Hillary. And one comment said, wow, Huma really put her whole body into it, or she put her arm into it. Or I was a little bit confused by how much people cared about a stupid fist bump. Anyway, the video is called Huma Fisting with Hillary. That's what it is. So maybe you'll soon be in the mainstream media. But this pandering, do blacks really look at Huma fisting Hillary and say, okay, this makes me want to vote for Hillary? I don't think so. It's pandering. And people don't have to be black to do a fist bump, right?